Gooners podcast. Mike, it's good to see you. Or sorry, Heavy J, it's good to see you.
Heavy J is my new persona. I'm getting all the branding set up right now, but we're not invincible anymore, which kind of sucks, you know. I really thought this was the year. I did, but this is the year that we invite back a special guest, and I need you guys in the chat to tell us something, because strangely, I am seeing Sophie at a 90-degree angle, and Andy is seeing her right side up. Well, now you look good there. So we need to know from the people in the chat what you're seeing, because if I can deal with, I'm used to seeing her on a 90-degree angle, but we don't want we don't want it.
Bugger.
Yeah. So we got Sophie Nicolau on, the soccer diva. Joined us a while ago. She's agreed to come back for more. Andy, we signed her to a new bumper wage packet.
Yeah, she's on $350 a week.
She is, but it's performance based, so you got to step it up. This is your one chance. But Sophie,
so basically, I'm Ceballos.
Yeah, I mean one good week, one bad. Yeah, and Sophie can be found covering football for Talk Sport. I watched her last night get ready for what was probably the most insane football I've seen in this country ever, probably, right before the El Tráfico. But you can also be found sometimes being interrupted by Amanda on the Highbury Squad podcast every week.
Sometimes.
Also starring Super Kev. So welcome back.
Thanks for having me, you guys. Really enjoy talking to you about football. Lovely to be back on the show. And yeah, let's roll.
Andy, are you messing with the control? Yeah, Andy's messing with the controls here.
Only because when you put up a comment, or
it blocked Sophie.
It blocks her beautiful face, and I wish we could get you down there.
Yeah, I came in here first for a reason.
I have the shades on after a heavy night in LA.
So I don't think I've ever seen you without shades on.
I don't want anyone to think I'm a wanker. It's true. You know, I once read an article from the creative director of Vogue many years ago saying everyone always looks better with sunglasses. So, you know, I took the advice and have been living happily since.
I look better with entire head glasses that cover everything. So
it's called a bag.
It's not about what I'm seeing. It's what everyone else has to look at. But are you still sleepy from last night? The boring American soccer matchup in LA? I mean, my God, what a game that was.
That was insane. I have to say, of all the games I've been to, derbies, and I've been to a few around the world, it is up there with one of the best atmospheres I've ever experienced. It was a mix between like a European, South American match, and it was so amazing because I've never ever seen before. Maybe in Argentina, or, you know, in the early days of Syria, not the early days of Syria, but the height of Syria, where Napoli fans and Roma fans were really super crazy, and people used to actually go to games in Italy. They sang for 90 minutes. They literally take a break at halftime for 15 minutes and grab a beer, and then they're on it. And even when Zlatan scored that goal, within 3 minutes, they sang louder. It was unbelievable. It was brilliant.
Yeah,
really
I mean, I tuned in the 6th minute. It was already 1-0. I went for a quick whiz, and literally in the 3 minutes I was in there, you know, because I like to wash my hands and, you know, tap a few times. I missed 3 goals. I mean, it was 3-1 when I came out of the bathroom. It was ridiculous. But after the game, did you go for it?
Is that how long it takes? Just 3 minutes?
You know, it's done by the inch. So after the game, did you go for a cheeky Mickey D's, or did you have a Chinese or a something?
I didn't. I had
an in and out.
No, I had some friends who went to the game, so I met up with them after, and they were so hungry that they actually got a couple of those dodgy hot dogs from the side, you know, people on the side streets. Although there's like 100 of those guys outside Bank of California, and it seems everyone seems to eat them, so they thought, why not? I mean, all these people can't be wrong, can they?
No.
So, and I, you know, with the press pass, you get a little bit of that, you know, food.
Oh yeah, you get the crudité, I believe it's called.
Yeah, I like the LA Galaxy press food because the lady who makes it all, she always puts on you're always guaranteed a great enchilada.
Oh,
LA
by the way,
Galaxy.
speaking of the LA Galaxy, I mean, I believe I sent out a number of tweets from the press box before, Andy, when I was waiting for you, and you were showing up in basically like a bandana and no shirt, and I see you off in the corner like being talked to, and I didn't realize at the time you were talking to Soph, but I thought like you had been prevented from entering the proper area of the room. And I was so distracted because I was having the best brisket I've ever had. I'm like, goddamn, why?
I didn't even get to eat the food because, like, before Soph, there were these Asian broadcasters who wanted to talk to me for some reason. I'm like,
I've never seen a guy with that big of a head before. They're like,
right? And then I get quarantined by Soph. Then, like, you take me to the seat, and then I'm talking to Arse Blog for, I don't know, and then I was like, fuck this, I want to go watch this in this
name dropping AF, but I was about to drop that too, because I think the amount of meat that Andrew saw me put into my mouth, I mean, I had no respect from him in the beginning, and nor did I deserve any, but at that point, I mean, sitting next to him, he's like, just don't get barbecue, or just don't get sauce on me, because, I'm a professional.
You guys made me laugh hysterically when I saw you, because you wrote to me and you were like, should we wear our Arsenal shirts or not? And I said, listen, it's probably best not to. They don't really like you showing allegiance to one team or the other. And I turn up, and the first thing I see is the two of you pitch side in your Arsenal shirts. I was like, well.
He was in a kit. I was wearing like some sort of polo Arsenal type of shirt where I'm like, I'm a douchebag, but I'm classy. And Andy's like, I don't care, because
I was like, fuck it, it's my last. I just didn't care anymore.
It's
I'm like,
so
we are who
funny.
we are, right?
Yeah.
Well, and the irony is in Charlotte and in DC, for the most part, I just gave up on the whole media thing, because I'm like, that was my tripping point where I'm like, I just want to experience this with my mates. Let
me ask you, because obviously Mike and I were new to the game. The limited access to the players, is that a norm, or was that just something? Oh, it is.
Yeah, let's skip straight to that, because I was actually going to ask that after we went over the game. But the mixed zone, I mean, the only thing mixing in that zone were feelings of loneliness and anger for us at that point. I mean, we had 5-minute interviews that we had planned out with each player. Andy was going to bring like a bunch of friggin' what was it, jelly beans?
I know, right?
We had all these games planned out.
Mustafi waltzes out in his shades and his cordless headphones, dancing like an absolute prick, to be quite fair. I was like, when I saw him, I thought, oh, I get it now. And it's the second time I've seen him. And I don't know, someone's personality kind of shines through. It explained a lot about why he's a bit dumb on the pitch. And I'm not being harsh here, but it's just how he came across. The difference is in the US, as you've seen, and you guys know, being American boys, lads, you get to go into the dressing room after. Zlatan has a bad game, but you're going to get to talk to Zlatan after. I would never have been able to, have an interview or a conversation with Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard and Andreas Pirlo and David Beckham. Seeing as we're on the name dropping, I just thought I'd try and keep up with both of you.
Oh, you mean the boys?
Yeah, I mean, you just don't get
the fam.
That. And what they do is they adapt the rule to what the players are used to when they come on the tours. So you don't get to go into the dressing room after the game. You don't have the same privileges, if you like, that you would during an MLS, NFL, NHL season. Yeah,
and I mean, it was like so maddening, because I mean, I kind of wish
nobody stopped, did they? No, it was really quite offensive, actually, because nobody really stopped, and I thought that.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell that you were angry about that. Yeah, there was no sign of outward anger coming from you at all. That same thing that just happened with Soph also happened when we were in LA. She just fell off the stadium.
Well, Danny's upset her by telling her she was quiet. Oh, she's back.
Sorry,
okay.
I'm back. So no, because even John Cross from the Mirror was standing right next to me, and he was waiting and didn't get anybody. But they do pull off, like they pulled off Callum Chambers and Rob Holding. Chambers and Jenkinson for John Cross during the training. So, it's a little prickly, to be honest. I think once they come on the tour, they should adapt. And, when do we ever get to see them? It had been 2 years since they'd been here. So was it a bit disappointing?
3.
Yes. Is it 3 years? Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies. We're all getting old.
I just wonder if the Koscielny situation had anything to do with the limited access. But what frustrated me the most is they did ask who Aubameyang's going to come over, he's going to have conversation, and then they just completely had a PR person or someone on their marketing team just usher him away from everyone. Whereas Bayern Munich were just like, whoever you want to, even Leno talked to the German media.
Yeah, you could have at least you could have thrown the jelly beans at him as you walked by at least instead. I mean, that would have been the reason to have the jelly beans. Mike says Michael Hernandez says Sophie just killed Andy and Mike on the names dropping game. Yeah, I mean we did.
It was a little gratuitous.
Let me ask this. So
it's nice though, because after we talked to Josh Kroenke and Vinai and all those guys, I mean, we ended up seeing you, so it was nice.
Yeah, and so have you ever been handed a phone, your own cell phone from Unai Emery? I mean,
oh God.
I don't understand. What do you mean?
I forgot you were in the room with us. That's right.
Oh yeah, no. There's a user question about that moment. So.
My phone did actually. There's a clip on YouTube and you'll see it. And to this day, everyone's asking whose phone was it that rang. It was David Beckham's last press conference at LA Galaxy. And I always use my phone for pretty much everything. And I, for some reason, did a faux pas 101. I forgot to put my ringer off. And in the middle of the press conference, it starts ringing. And I had an orange tab on my phone to differentiate from everybody else's. And he's like, oh, the phone. David's like, oh, the phone's ringing. Should I answer it? And I'm like, no. What if it's my dad or my mom? Please don't. I knew it was my phone, and he literally says I can't answer it. It's not a Galaxy, which was
sometimes on my phone I have this thing where porn just starts playing randomly. So I'm a little thankful that it wasn't that during the. Although Granit Xhaka would have been a little bit more distracted than he was.
Your subscription to Pornhub, although Pornhub you don't really need one, do you? It's all free.
Well, we get a free prescription because we provide content. So it's.
I know way too much about Pornhub, don't I?
All right, so now we're going to transition into Gooners versus Cancer.
Oh shit!
National Day of Giving.
Very clean, nice transition there.
You know, we have the best what's it called, non sequiturs on this show. But on a serious note, this weekend we did something called the National Day of Giving, which was a kind of a network of fundraisers at Marshall America pubs. We had the Fox and Hounds out in LA participated. We had about 16 supporters groups and pubs. The central one being in Arlington, Virginia, where my host pub is. And we did a raffle for a Alan Smith signed jersey, which is still going on. We're going to draw that next week. General donations, just everyone kind of pulled together. And as of today at about noon, that weekend raised over $5,000 for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, which is just amazing. It's amazing. On top of this summer, we did the same thing in we did it in Denver, in Charlotte, and in DC. We weren't in LA long enough, but and raised $6,000 through those. So I mean, we're pushing $12,000 so far on Gooners versus Cancer. I can't even express how humbled I am about that. Every bit of it has gone to Leukemia Lymphoma Society. Every bit of the super chats that we've gotten, all $3 of them, has gone directly to the LLS. But the one thing I just want to point out that is still going on is, and if I can get the screen sharing, we can see this, is the Gooner auction. And there is an auction if you go to, can we all see that? No. Okay. Well, go to 32 auctions. Yeah, 32auctions.com/Gooners versus Cancer 2019. I know that's not what it says in the box, but we'll be tweeting out about it. But it's an auction where you can bid on items, and these are, there's some serious items in there. First row club level tickets to any Arsenal game of your choice, currently $575 for 2 tickets. That's not bad for like a regular price, but when you're donating to charity, those came from Jack Stevenson. We're going to have a couple other sets of tickets that are coming on this week, a couple from the club and a set of tickets to a Europa League game from the Tollington. So, I mean, the people and the entities that are donating things to us are high quality individuals and organizations. Brilliant. Clock Watch from Gav at She Wore, It's currently 115, but these aren't being made anymore. So this is one of the last couple that you can get. And we're hoping that one goes a bit higher. Clock End canvases from Clock End Art. One's been sold. There are some more. Got some stunts from Lee Judges. We got to make Lee Judges read smutty passages from 50 Shades of Grey. I mean, that it's available for $20 right now. And, no one's bid on that. I mean, I understand it's Lee Judges, but come on. We've got Gunner Blog reading, making a personalized football chant or insult chant, if you want it to be, that you can use against anybody. That's been bid on. I know who bid on that. He lives in San Antonio and loves pizza with pineapple on it.
What's the bid right now on that?
It's 50, and there's no buy now because that James does such good work with stuff like that that one should be at like $4,000 right now. I just haven't publicized this enough. So guys, take a look at this. There's a Gooners podcast bell. You can get your own friggin' bell and ring it whenever the hell you like, and I'll sign it for you. Or if you prefer, I won't sign it for you, which I think will be make it much more valuable. We've got member packs. It's just there's a lot of cool stuff on there, and it really has been under trafficked in a sense because I haven't done much to publicize it because of our other efforts. But that's going to be the big push. It's the last thing we're doing for the last 10 days. So
it's brilliant, you guys. You should be really proud of yourselves. It's like really amazing.
It's 99% Mike.
Well, and 50% Andy letting me be the kind of obnoxious. And we get really nice messages when we DM people that follow us on Twitter. Kind of, here's how you can help us. And there's this one guy who's a fan of a certain grafter who loves to use that to spout off on me. So, you know who you are, and just stop following me. That's the only thing you have to do to stop getting these messages. So anyway, just mad shout out to Arsenal America, to people around the world who have donated to that. And just think, after the international break, one show, and then you won't have to hear about this again until next year. So speaking of charity, we went to Liverpool.
Yeah. So I want to jump into the starting 11, and we'll get to the full starting 11 in a few minutes, but I wanted to focus specifically on midfield. So I ran some numbers, Mike. I used a calculator. And if you compare our midfield to theirs, I used an abacus. I carried the one. Henderson, Fabinho, and Wijnaldum combined for 848 senior caps for club and country, compared to Willock, Xhaka, and Guendouzi's 351, of which 90% of those come from Xhaka alone.
Is it a cap when you start for your club?
Henderson has started more matches in his career.
Wow, shocking. For
club and country than all of our midfield on Saturday combined. So you could see why we were just – I don't think we played extremely poorly, but there was obviously a big tilt in the direction of how this match was going to go.
Just because you start a bunch – I mean, Kyle Beckerman has started 600 games. And
he's still experienced.
He's a good player. Let's not get me wrong. And Jewish, by the way. So, mad props to my boy, Harry J. But I wouldn't use that as a statistic to say that he's better than our midfield right now. But, yeah, I mean, I get your point.
But you're talking about 3 international players for Liverpool and arguably one –
Xhaka's an international player. Torreira's an international player.
Right, but I was thinking, starting. And outside of Xhaka, 90% of those statistics, I mean, you're looking at 2 up-and-coming players, but arguably, so...
Point is, this is going to be our one of our 2 toughest games of the year, and we're starting relatively inexperienced.
I'm tired of that excuse, like Trent Alexander-Arnold. Here's the difference. They've just got better players than us.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I mean, we could have played, a different, and we'll get into like formation and tactics, I'm sure, and all that stuff, but they just have better players than us. They won the Champions League, and they didn't win the Champions League by chance, and they only lost out on the Premier League by 1 point. And to be quite honest, they blew that. They were 11 points ahead of City around January.
Yeah, they drew too many games.
They should have done the double. I mean, they are a really good side. And what's infuriating is that 4 seasons ago, I don't know if you saw yesterday, but I posted the tables from 2015-16 and onwards. Mm-hmm. In 15-16, Liverpool were 9th with 60 points.
Yeah.
They were rubbish.
Eighth,
right?
yeah. The year they finished eighth, they gave Klopp an extension that summer after that.
Right,
year.
And I don't know
Good
if
move.
we're going to show Unai the same grace period that Klopp got, because I think it's still out there for debate with a lot of people if he's the right guy. After 2 games, you can't be blaming him. But with regards to those players, not to digress, they're just not good. They're not as good. No. And we can talk all day long about, but we played the diamond and we should have started with, maybe a flat 4. And it does. They're better than us. And we were for 40 minutes. We put up a good fight, and unfortunately, they broke us down and they wore us down, which is what great teams do.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And my point to that was exactly what you were saying. Unfortunately, we started the match 1-0 down because they just have better players to boot. If you look at Joe Willock, Mike, I mean, at the end of the day, and we're going to get to him a little bit later, so actually I'm going to hold that point. But so how did you see the starting 11? Should Laka and Torreira have started knowing how big of the match it was? I mean, I think Lacazette's coming off of that injury. Torreira's slowly coming back from a summer where he played for Uruguay. So how do you see that starting 11? Should we just have gone balls to the wall, considering what we have this weekend, arguably, I think, a bigger match? What
I love about certain teams that have to play Barcelona in a Champions League game or in a La Liga game, the better results are with the teams that really have a go at them. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's just football. But we have enough talent up front to have had a real go at Liverpool. And in some regards, you could say that at times, Pepe held onto the ball too long, but that's because he was very isolated. He wasn't getting that support. And Torreira should have started that game. He would have given and provided better protection in the middle of the park, and he probably would have narrowed the gap a little more between the defense. The gap between the midfield and the defense. And, I know Xhaka's getting a lot of stick. It's not Xhaka's fault we lost that game. He's just too slow. That probably wasn't the best game for him to start. But then when you're up against Liverpool and you're looking for that experience, you have to... Emery had to make a decision. Now, Torreira, if you're on the bench, Lacazette, if you're on the bench, for me, you're good enough to play. Not starting Lacazette, this has got to end. This is where Emery lost me a little bit yesterday. I'm not calling for his head. I'm not that crazy. But to not start Lacazette, it reminded me of that match at Liverpool when Wenger benched Sanchez. Yeah. And at the time, he was arguably our best player, our most prolific player who could have made a difference in that game.
It was punishment for a strop he had thrown, I think, a week or two earlier. But yeah, it's Liverpool away.
And you just can't leave Lacazette on the bench. You can't. No. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a game for Ceballos. I think we all agree on that.
No. The problem I saw in the first half is we just invited pressure by just clearing our lines and allowing the Liverpool defense to restart the attack sequences over and over again. So we didn't have a striker or an attacking midfielder who challenged down the middle. We were playing so wide that the pressure just kept coming from down the middle. And I think if we had a Lacazette in there who would have pressured or at least stayed central, maybe the ball doesn't just completely keep coming back our direction.
He's so good at holding up the ball too, isn't he? He has this amazing ability when he's got his back to a player too. I mean, he makes it work. His turn, his instincts are incredible. And I just find it hard to believe that Emery would have left him on the bench. The only thing I can think of is that he was still carrying a little knock, but why have him on the bench and risk him from being further injured when you've got the North London derby coming up too? I just didn't get that.
If he was given 30, given by training staff, he was given 30 minutes with him as opposed to, either getting him hurt or having him for 0. Maybe that was the situation. But, Andy Kenny
last week, with 10 minutes to go. That was...
Yeah, that's the weird thing for me.
But Kenny said last week that, when he was going through his ideal starting 11 for it, he said, you cannot in this game. And, again, with my tactical noose being literally 0, he says you can't start Lacazette and Aubameyang together. Now, I believe his suggestion was you start Lacazette and Aubameyang can come off the bench in that game. I think you put your best players out on the pitch and especially in a game where it's just going to be balls to the wall the whole time. But there was a rationale about why you can't have both of them on there. But the rationale was to flip it and have Lacazette and his hard work and his hold up and Aubameyang maybe not doing enough hard work, outside of the 18 to get it done. I mean, real quick, just to backtrack. I mean, Liverpool. I've been saying for forever that we're 2 years behind Liverpool. I mean, and I'm saying that in the sense that I think we've picked a realistic track to follow and to emulate and to try to exceed, unlike the Man City track, which is not realistic, the Manchester United track, which still they haven't gotten it to work. But Liverpool's working. And they're kind of in the situation where we were, and they're the team that has the financial strategy that we do as well now. And when you're 2 years behind a team that's on the rise, you're gonna lose 8 times out of 10 or 9 times out of 10 when you go to their park and play them without your best fullbacks.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's if the plan was, go ahead.
No, I was saying, and arguably one of your center backs with Holding, because I think that he puts everyone else under pressure to be in that starting 11.
That said, Aubameyang finishes that chance that wasn't easy, but Aubameyang can finish some crazy stuff. If he finishes that, Pepe finishes either of his 2 golden opportunities in the first half, then the whole game has changed.
Those 2 chances, we should have buried them. At that level, in that game, you've got to take those chances. And that's why we will struggle again away from home against these top teams, because we do not put our chances away. And yet, as many goals as Aubameyang scored last season too, he does need like 3 or 4 chances to get that one chance. Whereas for me, Lacazette is a little bit more clinical, yet doesn't score as many goals because he does so much more around the park than Aubameyang does. And Pepe, he's got to finish that. I don't want to hear if he's
had two opportunities.
The one that where
one never got to a shot, but the one you're talking about.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys listen to the Football Ramble, but they do an On the Continent podcast, and one of the gentlemen was saying that he watched pretty much Pepe play in almost every match last season, and he said Saturday was the first time he's ever seen him so one-footed. He said that's the big difference between the French league and the Premier League, is that you can play with 2 feet in the French league and have time. I do think we saw glimpses of Pepe. I mean, you're going up against the best center back in the world in Van Dijk. And so for him to be able to turn him and I think Liverpool adjusted very quickly to go, hey, Virgil can't take him alone all the time. So they really gave him cover. So we have a great player, but also think like it's his first start for Arsenal. You're at one of the hardest grounds in the world to go and play at. I mean, it's not easy, and excuses or whatever, but
no excuses.
He'll find his feet.
No excuses, but
we have a special player.
But I mean, no result mattered to me. No, the charity thing didn't matter to me. We saw something, the rarest of rare events in the 7th minute of the game. I mean, I've been watching football for 40 years. And I will always now remember where I was the moment that Virgil van Dijk got dribbled past.
But as Soph said,
I mean, it's finally it's happened. It's happened, and it was our guy.
Well, as Soph said, you need to be clinical, especially in matches like this. When you're playing, Brighton or your Newcastles, Mike, you can stand
the Newcastles of the world.
You can stand to miss those chances because professionally you're going to get the ball back and you're going to be able to recreate those against a team like Liverpool or City. If you're in front of goal, you have to score it. We saw that with Palace. I mean, how many opportunities did they have? They were just clinical and they got that win over United. So
who was it Salah skinned for his goal?
I think it was Luis.
It was Luis.
Luis first, and then who was
and then it was Nacho.
And then Nacho, right? And Nacho. I'm not gonna kill Nacho here. He's been amazing in a lot of different games. Obviously, age is catching up with him. But
we'll talk about him in a minute.
That's the difference, right? That's the difference is that Salah took his chance. And look, Pepe is I don't know how much younger he is, but I don't want to hear that. I really just don't want to hear these excuses. This is your job to dribble and score. Right. And at the end of the day, you missed that chance, and it wasn't even a great save. It was a poor shot. That
was an Iwobi shot, and Iwobi even seemed to get out of that towards the end of last season. I mean, we saw what he did in the Europa League final, but
Well, let's stay on
that's a Walcott shot. Let's put it that way. That was a Theo Walcott shot.
Well, so when we talk about being clinical in front of goal, we have to be smart in defense, right? So David Luiz, the silly tug on Salah gives up the penalty, but more importantly,
oh my God,
in hindsight, it's the yellow card, right? Because he can foul Salah when he got burned that far away from goal, professional foul, he's going to get the yellow then. Because he got the yellow earlier on for that stupid tug, he can't then create the professional foul, which leads to the third goal. We obviously understand that he is a liability. Do you think that outweighs – there's enough positive to outweigh his liability?
Okay, so do you think it was fair for Chambers to be dropped for the Liverpool game just because David Luiz plays for Brazil, played for Chelsea, and has won a lot of trophies, right? Of course. However, again, you make a managerial decision, and in some regards, sometimes a manager will make a decision and it could hurt a player's mental. Chambers had done everything right in pre-season, and he had done everything right in that game against Burnley. He was it Burnley? Yeah. He actually, I think, made Socrates look better that day. And I'm not saying that Chambers is better than Socrates. And we'll get to the Greek because he's getting away with murder right now, to be quite honest with you. So I don't think it was fair to drop Chambers. I would have let him play in that game. I really would have. I would have let David Luiz maybe ease more into the team, the system a little bit. But, he has Mustafi moments. And I think people got a little bit too giddy when we signed him.
We knew that he was going to be like that, but that he had the anti-Mustafi leadership, the dressing room, all
great
of that.
Leadership, pulling a shirt and getting a red card. Well done on your leadership.
On the pitch is where his leadership ends sometimes,
But it's that signing came so late in the window. It's kind of reflective of a few years ago when we signed Mertesacker and Arteta. We were so over the moon with these signings that we were kind of blinded with, well, they're not that good of players. I mean, Per was good for us.
That was the week after the 8-2, though.
Well, exactly.
I wasn't that thrilled about it. I thought we were panicking.
They both worked out okay.
Yeah,
they sure did.
And I'm sure Luiz is going to come up bigger for us than he will. But like Soph said, this was a Mustafi type of mistake. And, I mean, there were a lot of players who caused us to lose that match. I mean, everyone keeps harping on Xhaka. Ceballos played like dog shit. I mean, he looked like he was a
great centering pass in the first half.
Oh,
it was to Sadio Mane.
Yeah, but
Xhaka needed Torreira next to him in that game. That is what he needed in that match. And to blame Xhaka for this loss, I think, is kind of, to be honest with you, it's bordering on cruel because, look, has he been a boneheaded, fool making mistakes at pivotal moments? Yes. Are they glaring? Yes, because the Crystal Palace mistake last season really super cost us. But I also think that it's so lazy to just point the finger at Xhaka all the time. Is he the answer long term? Probably not. But I think what we have to do is be very careful about killing players when really it's not their fault. I don't know if he made any glaring mistakes.
Man, you are preaching to the choir right now.
There were a couple moments against Liverpool where Xhaka stopped that ball going into the 18. And I just think, instead of bashing on what he's doing wrong, why don't we focus a little bit on what he did right? Because there were moments where I thought, who was that? Because he's getting killed out because of the for the Matip goal because he kicked it out for a corner. Come on, are you serious?
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second because all right, now I've heard people blame. Please say it for me, the Greek guy.
Socrates.
Yeah, I like. I'm going to just go like this when I want you to say it for me because Socrates just sounds like a high school student learning about philosophy. Yeah. So. I mean, to me, Guendouzi, we talked about Pornhub a little bit at the beginning of the thing. Guendouzi looked like he was a recipient of Pornhub treatment in that goal. I mean, now I've heard that it was kind of that he was pushed, Virgil van Dijk and Matip both basically just abused him on that play. One of them's tugging him down. The other's vaulting over him to get up in the air. No VAR, no anything. Again, it's sour grapes, and I'm not going to say that's why we lost the game. But I mean, was it just that's the dark arts that you have to be able to do on corner kicks, Soph, or was that just a dirty play? Or was Socrates more to blame than anybody else in that one?
I think he's got to pick up Matip there, don't you? I mean, when you
don't want Guendouzi being that guy, but that said, if you see Guendouzi being pulled to the ground and the guy that he's rushing towards jumps up for an open header into the goal, then what do we?
He's got a lot. He needs to put on a bit of muscle, right? He's got to go to the gym and work out a little bit and get stronger. But again, Guendouzi, I think, has been, pretty decent in the first couple of games. I think.
He has been.
Yeah, he's been good. But yes, defensively, we're a mess, and this is something. The sign of madness is when you do the same thing over and over again. And I think Arsenal fans are at the end of their rope, not with Emery, they're just at the end of their rope with the concept of why are we not improving in defense, even with the players we have? Why can't we improve them? It didn't work with Steve Bold. I don't know who's actually working with the defense right now from on the training ground. It's
YouTube.
It
should be Caicedo, right?
They just watch YouTube videos.
That's more than they did 5-6 years ago from things I've heard, but
it's really frustrating.
And yet Mustafi can't even get into the traveling.
The big thing for me is why, you said it before, but why is Guendouzi even in that scenario? At the end of the day, if we're going to zonal mark, excellent. But when you have two players in Matip and Virgil who can literally do wonders with their head, you have to say in this scenario, Luiz and Socrates, you man mark those two players. Wherever they go, you go. Everyone else zonal mark around them, but you cannot leave one of those players to have Guendouzi mark. You have to at some point step up and go. It's like if you were playing Real Madrid with Sergio Ramos. You do not leave him free in the box. You put your best heading defender on that player. And
absolutely.
So
you've got Mane to worry about. You've got Salah to worry about. You've got players that, even like Fabinho coming in for the corner. You've got a lot of players to worry about. They've got weapons everywhere. So, the one player that somehow, I told you, Socrates has been poor, and he should not be getting away with this. This is why I put that poll out today saying, is he the one to be dropped, right? But madness, of course, in a moment of Greek madness, I'm thinking probably not. He's probably the better of the other poison that we have. The one player who, for me, is so overrated, I don't get it. I know he's playing out of position. He's becoming the jack of all trades and master of none. Absolutely. What is the fuss about this? I don't get it. Explain to me.
It's work rate and desire, because it's certainly not skill. It's work rate. It's the willingness to fill in. I think people like the intangibles and stuff, but I don't know that anyone would claim that he is a starting right back and a 4 for a top Premier League team. I mean, there's just
when
no way.
When I talk about the defense, and Ashley, my voice goes supersonic. I'm just going to take a deep breath, take a Xanax over here, and just relax.
We encourage drug use on our podcast.
So the one bright spot Saturday for me was Joe Willock. I think he was unbelievable on the day, and for his age, you can tell why we've happily let Ramsey leave. I mean, he pivoted, he turned.
I don't know that it was happily, but
But at the end of the day, Mike, if he's the heir apparent to an Aaron Ramsey, based off of what he did with such a big career in front of him, I thought he was absolutely outstanding. Very rarely put a step wrong. He turned and drove at the Liverpool players. He came back and defensively covered. I think that he just was absolutely outstanding. And there were a lot of question marks around should he be playing in matches of this stature. And I think the answer is absolutely yes, he should be.
Yeah, I think the same with, there's a lot of young players right now that are doing well at some top clubs. I mean, I'm impressed with Mason Mount. I think he looks like a top quality player. I think James at United scores a peach of a goal. Shouldn't have celebrated the way he did when they were just, tied 1-1 with 88 minutes to go. But it was a great goal. Willock, I think, is a standout player so far in terms of some of those younger players coming through. He's the perfect example of age doesn't matter. If you're good enough, it shows. The quality shows, the effort shows, but also he's a smart footballer. He's intelligent, which means that he can play with the Lacazettes and the Aubameyangs of the world. The way he thinks, he seems to be that kind of player that thinks 2 plays ahead. He's really quite incredible. I also think that he's a footballer, i.e. he can play in most positions and probably play in most positions, maybe other than CB, of course, really well. He's very impressive. And for me, he's one of the first names on the team sheet for me right now.
Mike, is he the next Xavi?
No, I mean, like prime Xavi, like 2010 Xavi was a shit footballer compared to Joe Willock right now. Willock's at a completely different level. He's more of like the English version of the Welsh Xavi, Joe Allen. That's how good he is. But, I was talking to somebody on Twitter last night about, why do you it was Nathan who was complaining that every Arsenal podcast is basically okay with our loss and has the same narrative and no one wants to argue with each other and say the tough things. I think we got a fairly good variety of opinions here. So, take your
I think we've been fair, but also we got to be harsh where it requires it. Are we asking for Unai Emery to be sacked after 2 games? Of course we're not. 3 games. No.
We're not. I know people that are, but
but that's just foolish, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, Watford have lost 3 games in a row and are considering moving on from their manager. I get that. If you're Watford, because you could actually get
but
in
he's a good
trouble
manager
really
though.
Quickly. Exactly. Be patient. We've seen what's happened with teams. We played the best. This is why when I said, don't blame Xhaka, ask all these questions. And all the questions I felt like I asked were fair, right? I think you have to have perspective. Let's see how we play against Tottenham, who lost to Newcastle at the weekend. We lost to Liverpool, probably right now, the best team in Europe. Well, on paper they are. They won the Champions League. But I still think going into this season, they are the best team in Europe. So we need to take a deep breath and manage our expectations and also understand that, I think Emery needs to be careful, though, about his tinkering, don't you? I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a little Ranieri-ish, and but
that's what he does. Every club he's been at, he's.
And we've complained that there was not even a sign of recognizing the changes that needed to be made with Arsene Wenger towards the end. So you go from one extreme to the other. Maybe it's nice to have have something in between. But in the first month of the season, when you've got players at various levels of fitness, very wide-ranging levels of fitness, you're always going to have some funky. If we're still doing this in November, December, maybe. But when you say, I fully think that Torreira should have started. I fully think Lacazette should have started. Those seem like no-brainers to me. But I also might not have gone into the season entrusting Joe Willock with the position that he was, given his experience. I might not have. I might have rushed back Torreira over Guendouzi in the first couple games, and we saw how he played. So, as supporters, we don't know everything that's going on, and we also don't know everything. So, I did question Arsene Wenger tremendously towards the end of his run because I just felt like I had had enough experience seeing his decision-making process over years. I don't have that with Unai Emery, so I'm willing to give him a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt of saying, well, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know if Lacazette had even 60 minutes in him to play the first 60 minutes. We don't know. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed and hoping he knows what he's talking about.
Having tinkered so much, and I love his halftime subs. I love that he changes things so quickly. I think we, like you said, we've all been craving that. But then to not bring Lacazette on earlier and leave it until the last 10 minutes, that kind of stuff makes you ask questions like why,
Yeah.
We're looking.
Maybe he was already looking forward to next week, and saying this one's gone. Which I'm not defending that thought process.
I just think that we went into this game with a lot of hope, rightly so. We've made improvements. We've had a really good preseason. We're all excited about the signings we've made. Most Arsenal fans who are sensible know that we should have strengthened more in defence, and that's always going to be our pickle this season and could end up being our Achilles heel again. Some of us thought, if we play well and we get an early goal, we could get a draw. But I don't think most Arsenal fans went into this thinking we're going to smash Liverpool, because it's just not going to happen. I mean, it's just not. And it might not happen when they come to the Emirates, but hopefully by then we'll be more improved and we'll see.
Did you see this? I didn't realize this. When Chris Wellick left, it was almost like he was the talented one. And who's this guy, Joe, that is like his little brother? Apparently, he left for Porto for greener pastures, and he's back with West Brom now in the championship.
That's what Danny's saying.
Yeah,
Danny's a lot of things, but not a liar, Mike.
No, he's not a liar. He's not a guy that doesn't bathe, and he's not a guy who doesn't know stuff about lower leagues. He is a guy, whose question I cannot find, so I can unhighlight it. Okay, there we go. So enough about Liverpool. Next week is the one that matters. I mean, they all matter, but before you start criticizing me, but it matters. It really, really matters. So before we talk about Nacho and get back onto the Arsenal trend, a quick departure from that. I was following your comments over the weekend, and the one that struck me was about Wesley Sneijder. I saw some video. I saw some comments that were made, and I know that you have very strong feelings about that, and made unique by you being an actual journalist as opposed to what Andy and I call ourselves. So I want to kind of give you the platform because I know you've got some thoughts on some of the social media comments that were going out there about Wesley.
This made me so mad. I mean, so furious. How disgraceful that networks like ESPN and Fox Soccer and commentators on ESPN like Taylor Twellman, who all, by the way, fly the flag for fairness and equality and all of this stuff that some people are so honestly full of it because their rhetoric is it's always convenient to I'm so all over the place with my comments here because it made me so angry. Taylor Twellman was absolutely ripping Indianapolis Colts fans for booing Andrew Luck at the weekend, right? And then he goes on the same platform and completely fat shames Wesley Sneijder. You know what? That dude has probably been training since he was 12 years old, probably younger, to become a footballer. He has has he enjoyed his life? Of course he has. But I'm saying like the life of an athlete is, you got to be dedicated. You make a lot of sacrifices. So what if he wants to have a few pies and beers and he's gained a few pounds? I just don't understand how irresponsible some people can be, especially when they have kids following them. Mm-hmm. All right. And some kids, might be considered overweight or whatever it is. And they're seeing that and it's making them feel bad. And 2 teachers actually wrote to me. And one DM'd me as well saying, thanks so much for saying that because I work with kids all the time. This is a huge issue in today's social media world where everyone's on Instagram trying to look cool and trying to be like suave and in their bikinis and in their whatever. And here you have prominent networks in the US fat shaming a player who, has had a decorated career with his country and also at club level too. I thought it was appalling.
I mean, you'd expect to see that from partisan, individual social media types and people looking for attention, but I mean, not from Fox Soccer, if I have that right. I don't want to accuse them of doing something.
It was embarrassing. Did the BBC do that? Did ITV do that? Did BT Sport do that? Did a Dutch channel do that? I don't know.
I'm not even kidding when I tell you that. I'm not even kidding when I tell you, yes, the Sun did it. Shocker.
Oh well, we don't hold. There's
no, that's not the standard. That's not the standard to go by. But
it doesn't matter. You just shouldn't do that. Okay, I know the whole fat Ronaldo jokes and all of that. As time's gone on and everything. I just feel like when it's a network and you just have to be a little bit more careful. And I work with kids at AYSO level as well sometimes, and they just need to be a little bit more responsible than that. I'll get off my hype horse now in my soapbox.
Well, no, I saw that. It made me think because I normally will look at that and not really consider the source of the piss take, and I'll be like, well, that's kind of mean, but look, I don't know if you know this, but I have a few extra pounds that I'm not so thrilled about. I know I come across as being like a slim athletic type and who wins penalty shootouts against other athletes, but that it's not the case. And but I've learned that making fun of myself is probably the best defense mechanism. But I would not love it if somebody in my line of work started laughing at me for that. So
a fellow professional like Taylor Twellman's an ex-player,
fellow professional like Andy. When he does that, it really cuts to the bone.
Andy looks like he's still got his corporate attire on over there.
Well, yeah,
he's at work. Meanwhile, I wear this to work, and I work in a basement. So
someone's got to class this shit up.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna be me. Ballon de Nacho, man. It seems as though he's.
Is it official?
It's not official, but it looks every bit to be. And the only question in my mind is, I think the transfer window closes September 2nd.
Yes.
And we play Tottenham on the 1st. So do we get him for the Tottenham game because we have literally one other option? Do we sell him because if he gets hurt in Tottenham, then we possibly lose the ability to get, 7 or 8 million? I don't even know what it is, but I grew to love this guy. I mean, there was a portion of 2 seasons ago where he went like 5 weeks and scored 3 goals, and we were calling him the next Messi and the Ballon de Nacho. I mean, it's he's one of those guys that I could say goodbye to and say thank you for being a good servant to the club. And as long as he exits the club the right way, unlike his defensive mate Koscielny, I have nothing but respect for the guy. But I do think, at least for the next few weeks, it leaves us pretty thin at the left side of our defense.
Well, maybe they know something about Tierney's recovery, and then you obviously have Kola who can get back there and defend. Here's the thing, Mike. I think in the summer he leaves for free. So if we can grab a little bit for him, he's 33, and we've got some up and comers. So I think it's good business if we can get rid of him. But you have to let him leave after the Spurs match.
I think that's important. And if for some reason something wacky happens in the Spurs match and he doesn't get his final, remember Ramsey's final Spurs derby, how much emotion there was. I kind of feel like Nacho could, and maybe not to that level, but Nacho could put in an inspired performance next Sunday if we let him.
Oh yeah, he can sneak up with a goal or two,
and then walk out the door with his head held high and Tierney on his way in, and get a statue.
And how amazing would it be if he had that moment? If any player deserves a moment like that before he walks off into the Arsenal sunset, it's Nacho. He's been so.
He could do it for Santi. It'll be like, I did this for my brother Santi because Santi didn't get to have that moment.
I was talking to Stevie Nicol a few days ago.
I was waiting for you to bring that up. I thought it was only a matter of time.
It's
is Nicolau like Greek for nickel? By the way, like, are you guys married and we just don't know?
It comes from the Greek word. He was kind of raving about Tierney. I say kinda. The only thing he just wanted to wait and see was, being able to keep up with the pace of the Premier League. But like Robertson, he thinks that he can come in, have an immediate impact. He's talented, he's quick, smart. And again, I think we need to just hold our horses and hold our cards until Bellerin, and we don't know what Bellerin's going to be like when he gets back. Tierney's going to be, refreshing. So once that back line plays that way, when you got Bellerin, Socrates, Luis, maybe, or Chambers and Tierney, I think that makes us a little bit stronger. Holding, yeah. Mm-hmm. I forget about Rob, who was having the season of his life, wasn't he, before his injury? So Nacho deserves every beautiful goodbye. He really does. Yeah. He's a good guy.
Now, another beautiful goodbye would be Mustafi and El-Neni, who are the other two people who are being considered out the door now. I'm thrilled that finally there's just been no sniff. I mean, after his sunglasses and dancing, which made me think that he was so cocky and reassured of his spot. It's shocking to see how quickly he fell out of favor with Unai Emery, but I'm pleased about it. Has no one told Unai Emery that statistically, especially now with Pepe in the league, that Mustafi has better stats than Virgil van Dijk? I mean, why isn't he getting more?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, we should be talking about that to teams in Turkey right now.
I wonder if they've sent a fax. I mean,
exactly.
It's actually quite shocking. Does it make you stop and think and be like, have we been really harsh on him? Or is it because his mistakes have been so glaring? Because when
Unai Emery did not banish him because the fans couldn't get along with him. I mean, I'm sure that plays into it, but Unai Emery's not the type to do that, I don't think. I mean, we've sat with him together. but yeah, I mean, like I don't think he would just say, I'm not going to play you anymore. I'm not going to sell you because
if I'm not mistaken,
because the fans will boo you if he thought that he was quality.
Isn't he fit? So why is he not in the match squads? Like that's the biggest indicator for me is that if you're not even in the match day squad, then
he's.
Yeah.
Before he actually went and told them that they suck balls and they need to go, he was sending them turkey sandwiches and doner kebabs, just trying to make them think about Turkey and get the hint. But Yeah, we got a £5 million offer from Succaspor Tasseray, and El Neni turned it down apparently. But El Neni, he'll be the guy that played like a handful of games for us, did all right, was what he was, bought him for 4, probably sell him for 6. So be it.
Nice lad, nice
did
lad,
nothing wrong.
Just not a really good footballer for Arsenal. He might be good for somebody else, but he just hasn't been really good for us, right? And I think Emery was really. I loved it that he sent a message because someone's not listening to him, which is why he went public and said, you need to find another place to live because I don't want to pay your rent no more, And
Andy said, El Neni's on his wages as a third choice, as a cup person, that's a guy you would like to have on your squad. But you know what, Andy? And I think you'd agree with me. We have better third options now.
We do, but, we do. And back when I said that, probably 6 months, 18 months
when you said it was true.
Yeah, we didn't. And he never complains about not having playing time. He seems like the boys really like him. And for me, Mike, I would just keep him on solely for the fact that he trolled Alexis Sanchez for 6 months after he left Arsenal. And
about Egypt making the World Cup and not
no
Chile.
other player had the balls to do that. So for me, put a statue up because I love that.
Wow, you're building a lot of statues.
We're the price of stone is about to
Nacho El Nini.
I'm building one of Tierney in a wheelchair. I'm building it right now.
Career before it's even started.
No, I'm saying like this is how he is right now, and I think he's the best left back we've ever had, and Ashley Cole is nowhere even near as good as he is. Not that we ever jump to conclusions. So, all right, one more topic, and then we're going to go to a couple more, and then we're going to go to user questions. We care, do you? All right. So we ran a poll this week, and then we'll backtrack a little bit, but about the hubbub surrounding Arsenal's new communication efforts, their transfer window, just kind of the changes that you can feel around the club at the moment. And the poll was A or B. I believe that the last 2 months of Arsenal's management and ownership represents A, lip service, short-term acts to buy some time, then resume the same old stuff with no long-term changes, or B, a true change in approach on how the club is run and led, long-term positive moves. And most of these polls, 60-40, 55-45, 86% said B, a true change in approach on how AFC is run and led and positive moves. And I have heard so many people who have historically just been, and I'll give one example, and he's a great friend of ours who I respect, and I'm pointing this out because I like his ability to evolve and stuff, and that's Craig from Same Old AFC. I mean, he got so frustrated over the summer, and understandably so, that we almost had it out about the Cronkies. I mean, he was saying that that we just have irrational support for the Cronkies for whatever reason, and that isn't true either. But he's been impressed with what he's seen in the last couple of weeks. So no one's saying the job is done. No one's saying everything's changed permanently. But so if you've been a part of this movement from the start, we obviously talked a lot about it when we were in Los Angeles, which was a very apropos time because it had just really gotten started. But and you've been fairly critical at times where it needed to be critical. What do you think of the strides that have been made in the summer of 2009 surrounding, not because of, but surrounding this whole announcement and this movement?
Well, firstly, I'd like to give credit to the guys who came up with it. And we were asked, Amanda and I were asked to come on board at that kind of early stage to put our names to the letter. And we were absolutely, 100% yes, right from the get-go. Understanding where they were coming from, what they were saying, the reasons why it wasn't just about transfers. It was about a lot of things to do with the club, how it was run, and also what the future is and understanding what path we're going on. And I think that's what fans wanted, was clarity. Now, I don't think you go and spend $72 million. Let me ask you this. You guys, you're gazillionaires, you're rolling in it, you're worth $1 billion. Are you just going to go and buy a 72 million boat because some chick wants you to?
Oh, this is a hypothetical. I thought you were actually saying that you knew that these things were true, and neither one of us was stopping you.
You don't go and buy a player for 72 million to pacify fans. You just don't, especially this club, our club.
And not those owners. That's not their game.
Absolutely not. Nickel and diming. I mean, we're seeing what Kroenke's doing with the stadium and how he's been resourceful in finding the money to build this Rams stadium. We've seen the lack thereof, how the funds were managed, transfers were managed under the Gazidis Wenger years. And now with Vinai and Raul there, you're understanding that with different executives in place and different business mindsets, they're managing the Kroenkes in a different strategic manner. And at the end of the day, I think that the club has really fallen under a lucky star so far with Raul and Vinai. And you guys and I spent time with them in the US. And unlike maybe some people in the UK, they don't get that chance to have these one-on-ones. And we were very fortunate that we were standing pitch side that day and we're having the conversation with Vinai too. And you guys ended up in the room with Kroenke. And when he said things like, I would tell people to be excited, and they've been working on this for a long time. Now, did the We Care Do You movement, what it did was it prompted Kroenke to say something. And I think that's what Arsenal fans were looking for. Be engaged, show us you care, be present. I think he's been to all of our games so far this season. I might be wrong. He was definitely at the Burnley game. And, what we've seen is an engagement.
Will he be going to games away from home? That's the interesting thing. I mean, I think that would make sense.
We know the answer to that is going to be no, Mike, because he spends 90% of his year in Denver. So we know the answer. He's
got a big business to run, yeah.
He's looking for Vinai and Raul to take that responsibility from him. So we want to see those two there. Would it be great if he showed up at Burnley or Brighton away and sat in the executive box? Yeah. But as Soph said, there was a 2-month span within this summer transfer window where no teams were doing anything. It was kind of like you were waiting for all these dominoes to fall. And I think that with Raul's connection to Barcelona and the possibility of maybe some of those players that could have fallen to us through those relationships, everything was kind of put on hold across Europe. And then you started to slowly see the dominoes fall. There's no way that we just up and said, hey, this is the player we want to spend 80 million on. That's not what happened. They knew the positions they wanted to go. We knew in June.
If we wanted to panic buy somebody, we could have panic bought Zaha.
Yeah, we knew that Tierney was going to be an Arsenal player 3 months ago.
Yeah,
there's
but
lot.
Also it's the small things too, guys, that they're doing. For example, forget the transfers. They've definitely put their money where their mouth is. We went from buying one marquee player a season, right? We had Santi, then we had Ozil, then we had Sanchez, then we get Xhaka, and it was almost, I felt that those signings were definitely like, this will keep them happy. Mm-hmm. This will keep them happy. Whereas this feels like we're actually really trying to build a squad that is going to challenge. I'm not saying win, because we're far from that. Challenge. And I think the small things that they're doing is like Edu walking with the fans outside the stadium before the game. Now, some people say that's great PR. Actually, yeah, it is great PR. And I think
it's not mutually exclusive that something is for public relations purposes and is actually something the fans want.
And
those can be together.
And this is someone who is revered by us, right? We love him. He's a special player for us with great memories. So I think it's those things that the We Care Do You movement has helped escalate.
Mm-hmm. That's the word. Mm-hmm. That's the word. Escalate. There's another word, but I mean, these things were already in play, and some people will never ever believe that, and I have no way of knowing that either. But I mean, they want. I mean, some people are just taking the piss when they say they want to take credit for that. I mean, my namesake for one.
I mean, and let's not forget, we also bought Martinelli as well. I mean, we spent money on him, on Tierney,
and then people went
Pepe.
absolutely nuts at the beginning of July, just assuming that all we were going to do was Martinelli, and there's 2 months left in the transfer.
Exactly.
But here's the other thing too: is look at what Pepe was doing up until the week before he signed with us. He was away at African nations, and a lot of these international managers say, "I don't want my player talking any club football. Their focus is here."
Absolutely.
And so there could have been an initial conversation in June saying, "Hey, we're interested. Great." You have to wait until the end of July, beginning of August before we can even have another conversation, or until we get knocked out. We saw that with Torreira in the World Cup. We all knew he was going to be an Arsenal player, but the contract wasn't signed until Uruguay was knocked out of the World Cup because the manager didn't want him involved. So there are so many things behind the scenes, and just to think that one movement prompted the Kroenkes to turn around and just splash the cash is absolutely foolish. These gentlemen are running numerous sport franchises, and they understand how the market shifts and what you need to do to get things rolling. And
they have to be consistent though now, Andy, right?
Yeah.
So now they've said maybe 2 more signings in January. If they can keep that momentum going, show the consistency, really they say behind closed doors or in front, say, we like the Liverpool model. They're using the Liverpool model a lot in terms of what we're doing in the future. And hold on, I have to just go get my little dog. She's barking. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Keep talking.
All right. They do run multiple sports franchises, but they run one football club. And that I think they're finally starting to understand what the difference is what I'm saying.
It's so different. Yeah.
I think that they're finally understanding the subtleties. As much as we heard Josh talking about, is that Humber? As much as we heard Josh talking about, how he has a strategy that he wants to implement and that it's kind of templated and he wants to copy it with Arsenal. I do think that they understand that. And I said this when you got up, they do run multiple sports franchises for which they implement a particular approach, but this isn't a franchise. This is Arsenal Football Club, and it's different. You have to connect. There is so much more community and longevity to it that you have to do the things that are going to make the supporters want to come in and be happy and be engaged, even if the things on the pitch don't go the way that you want to, because otherwise you end up with a club where the support is proportional to the finish, and that is not good for football clubs.
Well, also, Lacazette and Aubameyang weren't cheap either.
No.
I mean,
they spent money. They spent money before this transfer window, and Andy and I have gotten into arguments over and over again about the money, about comparing.
But the thing is, Mike,
net spend ours in the last 5 years.
We saw
it was how we spent it.
We saw this summer numerous times where Josh has come out and talked to the press. And the one thing that he said in every conversation was standing on that field in Baku was one of the worst moments of my life. Had he come out at the end of May or this summer with a tweet, with a just something, and said that to the fans,
He said, this feeling will never be felt again.
Yeah. Every Arsenal supporter would have looked up and said, thank you. Like if he would have just said that then and there. And that's where this platform of him coming to the media, like that's what we want to hear as supporters. We want to hear that your ownership is frustrated. You want to see, like you see Roman Abramovich when a goal goes in and he's shaking his head. You want to see that. And so, I think credit to the Kroenkes for kind of utilizing and saying, okay, we need to be on the forefront. But if he came out in May and said that, it would have been a completely different.
Brilliant point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
because when you see somebody who is upset at our failures, you see somebody who wants to take action to fix them. Yeah. And it has been 10 years since we have seen anybody. And again, they didn't own the club full. I mean, there's all these different things, but it has been 10 years since anybody was able to say, I'm not happy with that, and I'm in a position to fix it. Even Arsene Wenger was not necessarily in a position to fix any of it. He was just keeping it together. So
I think he was in a position to influence things a little more, whether he was in a
sure.
position to fix them. But here's the thing with Josh, I get this feeling with Josh. I think he sees Arsenal as a major opportunity as a businessman, first and foremost, also as an executive, to really make a change and put this club, we're on the map anyway. People are blown away when Aubameyang was blown away when he saw the fandom, the fan base here in the United States. He's never seen anything like it, right? I think Josh sees this as an opportunity for himself to build Arsenal in a way where that his dad has kind of spearheaded the resurgence of the Rams, and I feel like it's his pet project and he's finally into it. I think, again, We Care Do You helped click him into a certain mode. So I think that he's in this for selfish reasons, but also I think that, they definitely want to build this club and try and create like a Liverpool type scenario.
Had he not responded it would have done. It would have only sealed
it would have killed
their
it.
fate as being exactly what people think that they are.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it, to point to what Soph just said too, is, Stan bought the Rapids, Stan bought the Avalanche, Stan bought the Nuggets, and now Josh runs all of those. When Josh and Stan took over Arsenal, there was 50-50. This has clearly become Josh's project, and I think this is his legacy. This is something where he can turn to his children and say, I did that. That wasn't not what Grandpa did. That's what I did.
Yep.
And I think that he has that connection. And we saw it, Mike, when I had the offline conversation with him about the Avalanche and how the comparison to Arsenal was so similar with fan base. You could tell his excitement. And I wish we had that on video, because he was like a giddy kid talking to me about this. You know what I mean? And it was like Christmas morning, him and I, like, being able to talk about these two loves that we both have. And it's like, I literally thought to myself, this is a fucking supporter like the rest of us. That's where it's frustrating that we don't hear it, not weekly, but we don't hear it enough from him. I'd love if he had a Twitter account and he just wrote, Baku sucked. We're never going to let this happen again.
No, but you know what's interesting is, at the end of the day, the Cronkies are all about business, right? We know that. And there's definitely been a mistrust. However, I think that their ambition is to get Arsenal to become one of the most valuable clubs in the world. I think they want to try and build the value of the club as much as, now look, are we ever going to, Liverpool and Man United and Real Madrid and Barcelona are on another level. But I think that they're looking to increase the value of the club, and they know they have to invest in the club in order to get and meet those lofty goals that they have as businessmen.
And that's fascinating, because for a while it was the best way to keep our club valuable is to do just enough to keep the revenues coming in without having to spend. I mean, and I forget who it was that we even talked about this summer. It says, if 4 teams go for the league and go for the Champions League, and by go for, I mean they spend just tons of money in the transfer window, 3 of those are going to end up losing a shitload of money and not getting the results to show it. And we're far less likely to be the club that just goes for it and misses than the club that tries to build a steady way to the top or to near the top. So, all those 3rd and 4th place finishes in a row, without looking at those as being failures that we need to recover from, are, was a rational way of thinking about it. But the obvious question then was, but you see everyone around you that when you buy a world-class player, you get a world-class return more often than not, unless you have a shit coach like Jose Mourinho, who ruins those guys. Then spending money, you got to spend money to make money. And it now seems like that's clicked with them, is that you do have to spend money to make money. They still want to spend it smartly. They're not going to splash it like Manchester United does over names, Pogba, Ibra,
but you also
one after the other.
He is running a club of a fan base who love to take things to the next level. Like when Sven Mislintat left, 98% of the supporters were like, well, that's it for us. The club's pretty much done. We're going to implode because we've sold.
Because Sven Mislintat left.
Yeah, our chief scout left. What are our ambitions? Fast forward 18 months from now, or however long ago that was, maybe he didn't want to sign Pepe. Maybe he didn't want to sign, and there were 8 people.
Oh, he never could have gotten the Ceballos thing done at the. I mean, the stuff in Spain, he wouldn't have been able to get.
Yeah,
that.
There were 8 people in the room that did, and there was 1 that didn't. So what do you do at the end of the day? You remove that one person. You have to all be uniform together. So we just live in a time now where people in the chat are also saying, well, I don't trust them, blah, blah, blah.
And I put a couple of those up because, it's important to see that, there are still people who are very, very justified, in my opinion, to.
I think it would be justified.
Not be ready to. Yeah.
I think it would have been justified had he sent that letter and did nothing. That's pacifying. You send that letter and then you don't make signings, or you respond to the We Care Do You movement without action. Absolutely. What the sky would be falling.
You can't take 3 years worth of actions in 2 weeks either.
No,
you can't.
You're finally right side up.
I know. Well, I don't know if that'll ever happen, but yeah. So I don't know. I just feel like at this point, there's complain about the defense. Everything else, take a deep breath on. Take a beat. I think,
And as opposed to last year or in previous years when we we really didn't have a choice but to just kind of accept it. We never have a choice really, but I mean there's positive movements being made, and I think that poll that we ran and the 86% of people shows that some people, even people who are really stuck in the anti-Kroenke, anti-everything movement, I think the biggest thing that's happened, and Andy, I'm going to give you and me a pat on the back for this because we didn't cause it. I'm just saying we've been saying it for 2 or 3 years, is that Josh and Stan are not the same. No. And that when people start to understand that Josh Kroenke is in charge and has a different philosophy than his father does, despite his desire to protect his father by saying, Josh is Stan and Stan is Josh. We know that's not true. And when people start to understand that Josh Kroenke might not be Stan 2.0, maybe there'll be a little bit more trust that starts to restore.
To Don's point, I don't think the Chelsea and Man United results were under majority ownership of the Kroenkes. I think they were part of the ownership group, but they weren't sole owners at that point.
And I'm pretty sure that Josh was not on the pitch that day. No. Jenko was, which is almost kind of the same thing. But all right. Anything else? So I do. We got to get to user questions, but so just quickly, if you can, tell your story because of our opponent this coming week. Tell your story of the conversation you had with Vinai in LA, because I ended up having a very similar conversation and actually trying to build off of the one that you had with him in DC. But I mentioned your light bulb moment with him, but we've talked about it on your podcast, but I want our users to hear.
Yeah, I mean, he was very open. It was funny because the director, 10 minutes into the conversation, the director of communications came over and was like, "Hey, is everything okay?" And Vinai's like, "Yeah, we're just talking, no worries." And it was great to be able to kind of say to him, "Hey, we care to you." And he was almost not livid, but he was frustrated, kind of upset that he said to me, he goes, "I can't believe people think that we don't care. Are you allowed to swear on this pod? I don't know." But yeah.
No.
Sophie, I thought you knew us.
No. And that's what frustrated him the most, was that the thought of fans thinking that he and Raul especially don't care was alien to him. And I said, well, why would they think you care? What are you doing for the club? What are you doing to better the club, to make us competitive again, to reignite the Arsenal culture that has been lost over the years? I said the 3 FA Cups masked a lot of pain. They got us through a time.
Did it paper over the cracks?
There you go. Ding dong, ding dong. I think your bell, Kevin and Amanda hate my bell because I have a cowbell.
You have a bell?
Yeah, it's a cowbell, which is a kind of annoying to them, so I've stopped using it.
Oh, the cowbell,
really. Yeah, but and then he said, well, we've been making investment, year by year, and I said, when you see teams like what Liverpool have done over the last 4 or 5 years, and I'll give you this. There's 2 words, and this is how I said it to him. I go, 2 words as to why the Arsenal fan base has completely
This was the soundbite I wanted you to do.
Completely imploded over the last 2 seasons. Tottenham Hotspur. And he just stopped in his tracks, didn't he? And he looked at me, and I said, why do you think everyone's losing their minds? I said, were things so bad when Tottenham was so bad? When we kept finishing above them, it was, let's celebrate St. Tottenham Day once again. Now they're finishing above us. They get to a Champions League final, Vinai. I never thought I would see the day in my lifetime, to be quite frank, when I'd see Tottenham in a Champions League final. That's why people have gone mad. That's why people are losing their minds, in addition to just losing their minds because they've lost their club. Mm-hmm. But once you add Tottenham on top of that layer, I said, it should be a wake-up call to you guys. And he kind of looked at me and he nodded, didn't he? He was just nodding and nodding and nodding. And I think, the penny that I felt, and I've been in PR and this stuff a lot in my career, for me, in front of an executive or talent, a moment when the penny drops. And it was like he had this moment and stopped and really thought about what I was saying. And it's the truth. Everything went pear-shaped once they got really good. You know, you throw in the shiny new stadium, you throw in, you know, the shiny new Pochettino toy, even though they've still won nothing. You know, they finish a point above us in a season where we were in transition last year. We blew it.
God forbid they do. What's going to happen if we're not at least pushing to get back to where we need to be?
Yeah, and I said, you know, that Champions League final was probably the worst 90 minutes of an Arsenal fan's entire life.
Mm-hmm. I watched it with a West Ham supporter because I was like, this is awful already. Let me just at least. He hates Tottenham almost as much as I do. Doesn't love Liverpool. I mean, there was no real positive outcome of that day. I guess the one that happened was the best possible outcome. But yeah, I mean, and I
couldn't even watch the second half. I took my dogs on a hike. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And I think that once we had that conversation, and I kind of walked away from it thinking to myself, I'm like, damn it. I just saved Arsenal Football Club. This is half our problem. And do you guys not agree that the bottom really fell out once the enemy became relevant in the football world eye, but also in the fact that actually they're a pretty good team. They could win something.
Coupled with the fact that they were then taking the Champions League spot,
mm-hmm.
you know, so it's just like you add that onto it as well, and then it's just. Yeah, you don't want that. Now, we're in a position right now, Mike, where, you know, I think we're so much closer to Tottenham, and that it's so new for us. You know, I mean, we now know in 2006 how they were feeling during that Champions League final. And the Soph said, I never thought in my entire life I would see them in the Champions League final. And the fact that it ended the way it did with them just getting battered off the pitch was excellent. But just them being Tuesday, Wednesday night football is ridiculous, and it needs to stop.
Grant Wilborn, your compliments of Soph are right on. You just don't have to be such a dick to us, man, about it at the same time. We were there too, man.
What's Grant saying?
We were there. We helped. I spoke to Vinai a week later, and you know,
we spoke to Vinai the day before.
Oh, so you closed the conversation.
I closed your deal. I said Sophie, who I'm sure you know, Vinai. I said, you know, when she mentioned Tottenham, I'm like, you know, we need to. Long story, but you know, I took the baton and I ran with it, and needless to say, the next day we signed Pepe.
We got we got so comfortable for so long, right? It was when Arsene Wenger said finishing fourth is like a trophy, everyone poo-pooed it for so long. But when we didn't have it anymore,
everyone else started, yeah.
I mean, it was, you realize, and old cliches, you don't realize what you miss until it's gone. Mm-hmm. And oh my, do we want it back? And to get it back at the expense of them, I don't even care about getting it back at the expense of them. I just want to get back now.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying that's all I want, but I mean that's the first step. Is that has to happen. I mean, and you know, we don't get to the finals of the Champions League until we get into the Champions League again. So you know, we have to take one step at a time. User questions. That was excellent, Sophie. You've moved our chat room, and you know, it's just things that needed to be said, and finally people were able to speak truth to power legitimately, and it's pretty exciting.
And that would have never happened under the old regime. It would never have happened.
No, I don't think so.
No.
So, user questions. We only have a few, which is good because we're running out of time. From Mike in Virginia, which was more off-putting, Mike's phone alarm going off in Unai Emery's face, or the amount of sweat that came out of his body in the 5 minutes following the incident? Did you even notice? Because you were sitting in front of me, and like the rest of the press conference, I was taking these like sandpaper paper towels and just trying to sop up gallons of sweat because I was so uncomfortable.
I had given him a towel at that hotel, and I said, "Don't leave the hotel. Don't leave the hotel without this towel." Shows up. Where's the towel? Forgot it.
It was so epic. I mean, everything about it was epic. I remember him tapping.
First press conference ever.
Yeah, I remember him tapping me on my shoulder because I was videoing one of my answers, one of my questions, and he's like, "Your video's not on." I was like, "Great." So he still had his wits about him.
And you said, "But no, you said I know that though." Like you seem like you were pissed off that we were telling you that.
That's right. That's right. Oh, did I get a bit lippy with you? Did I get a bit lippy?
It was. Oh, sorry, my alarm's going on.
You turned.
Time to put the chicken on.
You turned around and said, "Why don't you sweat more?"
I think I actually lost 8 pounds that day, though, which was great. That was the good side effect of it.
I'm sweating myself right now. I've shut the windows for optimal sound for your pod, you see, and I'm dying in here.
Well, we're almost done. From Danny the GFP, if we don't make the Champions League and Emery's contract does not get the optional third year, do you think that with all the players and the young players at Arsenal that we have, that we could attract a top manager if Emery goes? Would we let him go if we don't have somebody lined up?
I think we have to let him go if he doesn't make the Champions League. I think we've got to be ruthless now. Yeah, we got to get ruthless.
But it's not just the players, Mike. It's also the ownership, right? And they need to be in the new manager, or the future manager needs to know that there's trust from the ownership to say, we're going to do whatever we're going to do to support you as the manager. So that's a huge part of it. And I can't see us not making Champions League this year. With the way United and Chelsea are starting the season, Tottenham looks super vulnerable. I think this is a season where I'm not saying we're going to compete with City or Liverpool, but I think we can put a gap between us and those other teams.
This is the season to do it. If we don't do it this season,
we're already seeing cracks in Chelsea, cracks in Tottenham, cracks in United. I mean,
or we can wait a year and then get Klopp after his sabbatical.
Yeah, I read about that this morning. That's not happening.
Money talk. Yeah. He'll be back.
Yeah. So, who's he think he is? Pep Guardiola?
Sergio Ramos?
who almost broke my ankles in Washington. I wasn't really that thrilled at him over that.
That bastard.
Son of a. All right, but the question though, I just want to make sure we answer the question that was asked was, if we let him go, do we have enough remaining star power to get a top manager to come in, or is it just going to be another transition person?
No.
Listen, without that star power, it's still Arsenal Football Club. All right. And I think people realize this summer, even before the transfers, before all the action started happening, people saw the enormity of our club. We have a huge fan base on a global level, but we're also we've been one of the most successful clubs in England. And we have a history. And Arsenal Football Club is a massive attraction, whether you have Pepe playing for you or not.
I think we were starting to worry that wasn't the case anymore, and then I think this summer has proven that again.
Yes,
that it is. Yes. I mean, people were like, "Why would you come here instead of the other places?" And finally, they've that old mantra of "We're still Arsenal Football Club" has been kind of proven to be absolutely true after all.
Don't get me wrong, the star players help. Of course they do, because managers doesn't want to come into a situation where he's not going to have the talent to be able to succeed. But we're still an attractive proposition. And, I live in hope that we'd still be able to find a top level manager.
Different knock, Mike Hernandez. That's absolutely right. When Arsenal come knocking, it's a different knock.
There you go. I love
One more question, and then the final question ties into the lineup against Spurs. So from Grant Wilborn, since he's apologized to us for being a D, I'm just kidding, man. Can anyone speculate on how Emery can get our best, most talented players on the pitch together? Is Grant American, or did he translate pitch to field just because he thought it would make us understand it better? I don't see Abba, Laka, Pepe, Ozil, Ceballos, Torreira, and Willock on the field on the pitch at the same time. It's a good question. So good, in fact, that I'm going to leave that to you, Andy, to then pass it to Soph.
Yeah, Andy.
Because I am going to mute my screen and disappear for about 30 to 45 seconds.
I'll have a beer.
I think he can do it. I truly believe that you could play with all of those players. I mean, Ceballos, Torreira, and Willock will make up a good three, and then we could play a front three of Laka, Pepe, Aubameyang with Ozil right between them, and then we just have three defenders.
You know what's really funny about that? I have a WhatsApp group with my cousins, and they're all Tottenham fans. I don't know what I did to deserve that in life. It's painful. I mean, imagine living through the Champions League with those little wankers. Right. Yeah. So I love them dearly, though. But they were saying that they hope Pochettino plays 5 at the back against us. They are absolutely shitting bricks about this game this weekend.
They should be.
Because of our attack, and after what they've seen, they feel like there's something kind of broken going on right now that they've not seen in years since Pochettino has taken over. I actually think Pochettino is trying to get his way out of Spurs.
Yeah,
I really think he's building his own narrative to escape and he's using Daniel Levy, and the signings or that lack thereof, but. Your team right there, I mean, we could lose 10-2.
We could also win 10-2.
Well, we could win 10-2.
Because if you think about it, Kane and Son are both going to score, right? So there's their 2. So it's almost
they didn't score at home against Newcastle.
No, but they love a goal against us. So
yeah, they do.
I think there's a way that you can work all those in, but the biggest thing there, Grant, is the options. If we can't work them in, you could take Ozil off the bench. You could take Ceballos off the bench. Aubameyang, this is the first time in years we've been able to look at this depth and go, we have a problem of who to start. Typically, you could put the starting 11 down easily, and then our bench is shit. Now we're looking at it like, well, how do you do that? And if you are Tottenham, after seeing what Pepe did, and granted he didn't score when he should have, but that's going to be few and far between. He's going to put the ball in the back of the net. And if you're looking at him making the best defender in the world look like a Muppet on multiple occasions against a shitty defender like they have, it's going to be on, baby.
Oh, listen, here's an opportunity for someone. Can you imagine what it would do for Pepe for the rest of the season? Even Aubameyang after missing the penalty, which would have, it's not the reason why we didn't get Champions League football. Let's not kill Aubameyang for missing that penalty, right? But for him even to come back in this game and have a moment. North London derbies are about building new heroes, creating new heroes. And I've always felt like that 4-2 game, it endeared us to Torreira.
Yes,
the goal,
I was waiting
the moment.
to say that. Yep.
Oh, God.
The knee slide, the celebration was unbelievable.
My hairs go up just thinking about it right now. And these games are about
mine would if I had any left.
Who's ready for the moment? And our defense might not be, but boy, do we have, like Andy says, we've got an attack that could
Can you
really
imagine
have
if it's
huge
Joe
impact.
Willock?
I don't care who it is. I'll take anyone.
I'll tell you something right now. If Pepe scores a goal this weekend, the stadium's going to go.
It's going to go nuts.
Bananas.
Yes.
I mean, if anyone scores a goal, it's going to go crazy. But if he scores specifically,
yes,
it's going to be like Torreira when he scored last year.
If he breaks his duck against Tottenham, then we're good.
Also, I just want to give a good shout out to our good friend Tom Rosenhammer, whose third kit has arrived, and on the back of it, it's got number 31, and the name says "Fuck your knife."
What?
Obviously, that one did not come from arsenaldirect.co.uk. We know where that one came from, which is where his next wife is coming from as well.
So Kolasinac, there you go. Hopefully he sees that because that is pretty funny.
That is great.
Wow.
And on that note, I think we got to wrap this up. So I tweeted that this was going to be a fun one. I didn't even realize how much fun it was going to be, but thank you so much for joining us.
You guys have been fantastic. Thank you for having me. Hey, thank you. My eyes there a little bit.
We actually got to look into your eyes as you said that. That was fantastic.
And thank you in LA for taking us under your wing. I mean, the moment we walked into the stadium, you were there ready for us, and we appreciate that. So
I loved.
We were just walking around, and there you were. It was almost like you had us on your tracking device or something. Like that.
I did.
Goober tracking device.
It was my Jason Bourne tracker.
Yeah.
Secret spy. But no, I love meeting you guys. There's a lot of Arsenal podcasts out there. There are a lot of talented people who talk, really good.
And then there's us.
It wasn't where I was going.
Okay.
But you guys provide a little bit of a point of difference, and I love your casual approach. I think it's engaging, and you have fun. And at the end of the day, this is football. And sometimes I think we get a little bit too bent out of shape. Twitter can be a little bit toxic, but I think, you know, with everything that's happened in the summer, we're seeing fans come together a little bit more. And some of these podcasts have a lot to do with that. And I just wanted to say thanks for having me. And I'm looking forward to talking more football with you throughout the season. I killed Andy. He just thought, boring bitch, I'm off.
Well, you know what? He told me a while. Andy, could you hear us or no?
Yeah, but my computer's about to die.
Yeah, he told me his computer's about to die, and we're both logged in under the same account. So when he just turned his screen off, he's got my avatar, which is a picture of Wayne Shaw. So so we're not going to lose the podcast when your computer dies, but you are Wayne Shaw at the moment, which is hilarious. So I think that's probably a good place to put a pin in it. Please check out goonersversuscancer.com. The auction is 32auctions.com/Gooners versus Cancer 2009. But honestly, just look at our pinned tweet. I'm going to finally change it from the Josh Kroenke audio video interview to the charity stuff so that you can find it easily. You can go to goonerraffle.fun. That is a website, and there's 5 days left to enter the raffle for the Alan Smith signed jersey. Going to sign it with whatever message you want within reason, and that's still up for grabs. But again, just a massive shout out to Gooners worldwide, especially here in the U.S., who have contributed over the last 6 weeks or so to that charity. The reason I do it stems from my father passing away 9 years ago from leukemia, and he would be up there. He was not a sports fan. He was certainly didn't get the Arsenal thing. We almost never talked about it in our entire life, but he would be so proud and happy to have a Gooner son right now with his family that donates to him. So thank you on a serious note. And Andy, I'll talk to you soon, buddy. Wayne, enjoy your pasty.
Hey, thanks. Love you guys.
All right.
Yeah,
and
thanks,
so,
Andy. Thanks, guys. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen and chime in as well. You've got some great listeners there, and it was really fun interacting with them. So thank you for that, and thanks to them.
Well, it's a pleasure, and we will have to do this again very, very soon.
Cool. Take care, mate.
All right, come on, you Gooners.
Bye.
Now we sit and wait for 10 seconds.